What's up, guys? It's Jake here from Chief Live Gaming. Today, another painting tutorial for you guys. We're going to look at the Plague Marines out of the Dark Imperium box set today. These minis are fantastic, guys. I have a feeling that there's a lot of new Death Guard players out there looking to get these minis painted up. So what I'm doing is a video series covering painting tutorials for all of the models out of this box set. Be sure to stay tuned to the channel and consider subscribing if you are painting up your own Death Guard from Dark Imperium. So let's talk about these Plague Marines. My whole goal for this series of paint schemes is to create paint jobs that are pretty accessible for most hobbyists. So we're not going to go crazy with edge highlighting or anything super advanced to get the main bulk of the model done. But I've left headroom for those that may want to take it an extra mile or push themselves or challenge themselves to really push the paint job up to that next sort of tier of quality. So hopefully you guys find this useful. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Of course, if you have any requests for tutorials, please feel free to leave those there. That being said, let's jump right into it. So the first thing we need to do is base coat our models. I've chosen Army Painter Necrotic Flesh for this base coat here. It's kind of a nice tan, yellowy green color, pretty sickly and nurgly looking. So I applied this with an airbrush over black primer. If you don't own an airbrush or have access to one, you can definitely do the next few steps that I do with an airbrush with a brush. It's just going to take you a little bit longer, and you might get a slightly different effect than I did. So now we look at pre-shading our models here. Essentially, the approach is to break up the different areas of the armor so it's not all the same tone. We're using Game Ink Sepia and Game Ink Black Green by Vallejo. Essentially a very dark green color and a brown. So if you don't have these particular colors, you can substitute in anything from different paint lines. So again, we're just trying to break up the armor here. Don't think too hard about this. I kind of just applied this with my airbrush in areas that I thought needed to be given some interest. So large flat areas or just areas that were a lot of power armor and not going to have a lot of detail work. So these models are super detailed in themselves. So it's kind of tricky, but you can see the end result that I achieved here. And again, we're just trying to break up the armor a little bit so it's not all the same tan. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, I have a couple options for you. The main one that I would go for is to do it's called overbrush, or essentially a very heavy-handed dry brush technique using similar colors. And again, we're just trying to apply this heavy dry brush to different areas of the model to break up the tan. It's going to look a little different than what you're seeing on screen right now, but you will get the same sort of end result. You could also just apply shades with your brush in different areas of the model to kind of, again, break up those colors. Next up is a full model black wash. This does a couple things. It helps to start popping out the details because the wash will settle in the recesses of the model and really give us some nice detailing. And it also blends our previous steps of sort of pre-shading down into a nice cohesive look for our model. So even if you did choose to do this, the previous two steps I mentioned with the dry brushing, it's sort of scratchy and a little messier looking. This black wash really helps to blend everything down together and give our model a nice cohesive look. So don't worry too much about letting this pool like you might on other models. Because it's Nurgle, because it's Death Guard, we want it to look dirty and grungy. So letting that wash pool a little bit is okay. As you can see in some areas of the model, I've let it do that, and it gives us a nice effect, again helping to break up the different areas of the model and just give us a little more interest overall. The last step to finishing up all the power armor of this model is a dry brush the entire model with Vallejo Model Air Light Brown. This is a very similar color to Citadel's Ushabti Bone, if you'd prefer to use that. Now, I did a pretty heavy dry brush here. You could definitely back off on your dry brushing if you wanted a more subtle look or a more, I guess, darker Plague Marines. Do it to taste. Start nice and slow with a light dry brush and build it up slowly until you get the effect you want. This is a really fast way to get highlights done on our model. If you'd prefer, you can definitely edge highlight instead of dry brushing. But again, we're going for a little bit of a speed paint here, not wanting to spend too much time. And because we're Nurgle, because we're Death Guard, we can afford to make it a little messier looking, and it actually works out pretty well. So now that our power armor is complete, it's time to move on to detail work. Now there's a lot of detail work on these models, guys, so dig in, take your time, it'll be worth it in the end. It's paint by numbers, but just hang in there. So starting from the left here, we've got Model Air Black Metallic. This is for areas like bolt guns, plague knives, blight grenades, and gaps and cracks in the power armor, a nice dark metallic. Next, we've got Model Air Rust. This is another metallic by Vallejo, a very dark, sort of brass, coppery color that I used for the armor trim. Model color Violet Red. This is great for tentacles and Nurgle sort of growth coming out of the Plague Marines. Next up, we've got Model Air Light Brown or khaki brown, sort of a preference, just basically a tan color to pick out the antlers, horns, skulls, teeth, all that kind of stuff that is littered across these Plague Marines. A lot to do here. And lastly, we've got Citadel's Wasdacher Red. This I used for the different cloth areas on these minis. On the box art, it's more of a purpley color, but I prefer the red on Death Guard, so I went with that. Feel free to adjust as needed. So once we've got 2 coats with all these colors down, let them dry, I came in with a brown wash. So I chose the same sepia ink that I used in step 2 of this tutorial. You can use Agrax Earthshade or any other brown shade or tone. Throw it only on the details and it'll help sort of blend them down and bring them down into the color scheme better. The last step is our top level highlight. So we're doing a little cheating here. This is Vallejo's model color Ivory, essentially just an off-white sort of color. We're cheating because we're skipping a lot of different highlight layers and going right to the top level. If you think about the way most colors are highlighted, you generally have your base tone, a mid-tone, or multiple mid-tones, and then your top-level highlight. Now, in most colors, your top-level highlight is white or very close to white, depending on how far you want to push your highlights, how contrasty you want to get. So what we're doing here is essentially just skipping all that mid-level highlighting and going right for the white or the top-level highlight. So this saves us a ton of time and is also very easy and looks kind of good depending on the quality of paint job that you're going for. So we're doing a light dry brush. Again, this is going to be a sort of to taste sort of effect. Dry brush it from above at first, build it up on the model depending on how much you want it highlighted. And it helps to bring our details into the power armor, give everything a nice cohesion, make the model look really nice and finished. So again, you could edge highlight here, but I think if you're confident with dry brushing and you go slow with it, dry brushing is just as good, if not better, at applying these highlights for something like Death Guard because it's messy. It's okay to use dry brushing more liberally on these effects. So from here, we're really just looking to add eyes and any other special effects you'd like, and we're done. So I went with green for the eyes. I think red would also look pretty cool. I pulled the same green color through the Plague Knives and Blight Grenades on these models for kind of a sickly effect. I'll cover that in depth in another tutorial. Be sure to stay tuned if you're interested in that effect. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if it's been helpful in the comments below. I want to thank you for watching. If you're interested in seeing more content, consider checking out my Instagram. I do almost daily updates on what I'm working on my painting bench, as well as other tutorials like this one, just in slideshow form over on my Instagram. If you guys are on there, might be something to consider. I want to just say thanks one more time for checking out the channel, for being supportive. I really do appreciate it, guys. It's a lot of fun to do this sort of thing for YouTube, and your interaction, your comments, your support really does mean a lot to me. So thank you again. Death Guard players, we've got a lot to be hyped about in this edition. Super awesome models in the Dark Imperium box set. I'm doing other tutorials covering the rest of them over the next few weeks. Be sure to stay tuned if you're interested, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye now.